Welcome to the Ask Ken show with Ken Lewicki of channelinginc.com. And so glad that you can all join us today. We're going to have a blast. Um, my awesome co host, Kevin Hughes, is here. He's going to be hosting the show. So, Kevin, do you want to jump in and go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey,
And
everybody. Welcome to the Ask Ken
yeah,
show. It is November 23rd, Ken. That's like a month away from Christmas.
wow, yeah, pretty much a month to the day.
Yeah. How many shows have we done now? When did we start these?
Quite a few, quite a few.
I want to say it's probably at least are we going on the 11?
Yeah,
Has it
we're
been the
getting
full
close to a
year?
year-ish. Yeah, yeah.
We have to go back and check because we might have to do an anniversary show.
Ooh, that's a good idea. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. I like it.
So don't forget, people, this is your show. Um, Even though it's got Ken's name on it, it's the Ask Ken show, but really it's your show. It's your show to be able to ask any question you want, as long as it's not a specific, hey, Ken, can you give me a reading? Is my loved one here for me tonight? That we're not doing mini readings or anything like that. What we are doing is we're going to ask all kinds of questions uh, or have Ken answer all kinds of questions. If you have a question, type it into the chat of wherever you're watching, whether that be YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. We stream it on all three. Um, Type it in, and I will pick the questions. Ken will channel and ask the questions. Um, and we'll take it from there. When you first log on, if you could tell us where you're from, and
And
yeah,
give us a shout out. Say hello. Yeah.
yes, because we love it. We love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. What I do for a living is I teach people how to channel and not just channel, but also increase their channeling abilities to insane heights, so really high. If you would like to learn how to do this, I have full certification programs plus lots of other spiritual events on my channelinginc.com website. We have a viewer here who's saying hi.
It's Anne Marie Valancourt from Montreal, Quebec. Welcome.
Hello, Anne Marie. Welcome, welcome. So, if you are watching anyone, please make sure you say hello, give us a shout out, let us know where you're from. And if you do have any questions about spirituality, about channeling, about anything to do with like souls or anything like that, um, please bring it on. It's all game, all is welcome. So, please ask, type it into the chat, and we will get to it.
Can I ask first, will Canada score a goal in the World Cup? They've lost
Abs-
their
abs-
first match.
Absolutely. So he's talking about soccer, or some people call it football, but here in North
Football.
America we call it soccer. um, yeah. And what's another question?
Let's start this. I'm gonna go here because then you're full screen and I'm not.
Woohoo.
Um, if I'm presented with five future career or life options, how do I know which one to pick?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the way that our spirit guides, we want to connect with our spirit guides. Most of us have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides during any one season of our life. Sometimes some people have two, some people have six. It's not good or bad if you have less or more. It just is what it is for this season of your life. So let's say, like, it could be any kind of area of your life. It could be relationships, it could be career, finances, it could be places to go eat. It could be really that simple. But let's take this example of career. So a lot of people think in life that we only have one life path, and we don't. We have many potential good life paths. Like, I was taught that through, like, I was indoctrinated that through a religious organization where they're like, you only have one life path, and then so that really put me into a real weird funk where I always thought that if I screwed up, that I'd mess up my life, and that one life path that I would be on, I'd mess it up, and then I'd be screwed for the rest of my life. And that's simply not the case. And I did channel this, I did check it, and you're more than welcome to check it yourself if you learn to channel. So the way that it works is, let's say, for example, you have five opportunities that are presenting you for different career paths. So what you can do is you can channel your spirit guides, and most likely would be your spirit guide who deals with your career and things like that. So let's say you ask him or her, you say, okay, well, which one of these five options would be the best for me? And your spirit guide might say, well, these first two, hard no, like there's no, like that would not be a good fit for you. This middle one would be, not too great, not too bad, but somewhere in the middle. But either one of these two would be great. So go for either one of these two. And now the reason why I use this example is because, as you can see from this example, is there's more than one option that would be really good for you. So a lot of people, like, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to think that they have to get the right answer, and you don't. So let go of that pressure. Let go of that, thinking that you have to. There's only one right answer. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes there is, you know, one appropriate direction to go, but oftentimes when there's a whole bunch of different options available to you, there could be more than one or two opportunities, even maybe three, that are a good fit for you. So it's learning to tune into your spirit guides, and then really finding out, like, rather than just using yes no answers, close-ended questions, instead trying to use open-ended answers. So things like, which one of these career paths would be the best for me? Oh well, not these two, but well, and what about these other ones? Like, in which one of these, and like, name them, label them, and go into more detail. And then there's a more advanced technique that I teach my students, which is called low, medium, or high. So on a scale of low, medium, or high, where would these? Well, these two would be a low, so those are pretty much out. This would be a medium, so somewhere in the middle. But either one of these two would be a high. So you could do these two or this one. Or what you can do, which I don't recommend, is you can say, well, screw off, guides. I'm not going to do anything you suggest, and I'm just going to do my own thing. Let me know how that works. Usually
That's
for
called
me,
free
that doesn't
will.
work out so well. So I do try my best to try to follow my spirit guide's guidance. And I think Kevin's laughing there.
I laugh because when I first met Ken, he always had said this. And I remember when you first moved to Canmore and I came out, we were going for lunch, and he actually channeled where we were going to go for lunch, which I thought, wow, this guy really does live what he freaking teaches, which is cool. So when you hear Ken talk about stuff like that, he lives it. This is not something he just does; he actually lives it.
Yeah.
So Anne Marie has a question, and I really
Well,
like it.
actually, let me explain that point a bit more. So where I
Yeah,
want to get all my students is where they are actually channeling all the time, everywhere, all the circumstances, all the situations, and it's just an everyday part of your life, and it's really beautiful and magical to watch when you get into flow with life. To watch the serendipities and the synchronicities and everything just like falling into place. It's like magical, and it's just like, wow, look at that, and coincidental, but it's not, because you're just in flow and you're going down the stream and everything's just working out nice and fluidly. And that happens when you are constantly channeling and following your spirit guide's guidance. So yes, I do. I made an agreement with myself when I first started teaching many, 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 many years ago, is that I would not be one of those hypocritical teachers that just say, okay, you guys do this, but that's not for me. No, I'm like, every single thing that you see, like um, in my curriculum here that I teach, like every single thing, I live, breathe, eat, sleep to the best of my ability, because I want to lead by example. And like Kevin said, even something simple like, oh, come and visit. Oh, where are we going for lunch or supper? And I just channel check. Okay, that's where we're going. And we show up and we have an amazing time. And it's just, yeah, that's the way I live my
and
life.
yeah, that's actually how he does it. It's I was impressed, I must say, because a lot of people will they'll talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk. And I think if you're going, especially in this field of practice and this lifestyle, if you're not going to walk the walk, don't talk the talk,
Yeah.
right? So Anne Marie has a great question. Yeah, she's right into what we're talking about. What are examples of how you use channeling in your day-to-day life? So let's expand on that one, Ken.
Yeah, thank you, Anne Marie. Great question. So, a lot of people, when they come to my courses, they think, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to improve my channeling," and that's great. Great reason to come in. What they don't realize is actually spirituality is not only the foundation to all chat. Or sorry, channeling is the foundation to all spirituality, in my opinion. When you learn to channel really well at really high levels, like, wow, you can go anywhere with spirituality. And at the same time, what a lot of people don't realize is that channeling is actually very transferable to all the areas of your life. And when I say all in this case, I really literally do mean all. There's not an area of your life you cannot not use it. You can use it everywhere. So you can use it like at your job. When I was working for the government, I'd be in board meetings and I'd be channeling right then and there, right? Like having a normal average day conversation. I channel it like going to the grocery store. I channel it when I'm at the gym. I'm channeling it. And some people at the gym, they'll come up to me because they know what I do, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, I felt my grandma's presence the other day," and I tune into her and I give them a message right then and there on the spot, and they're crying, beautiful tears of joy, which is wonderful and always welcome. And then and they're like, "Oh, Ken, thank you, so wonderful," and I'm like, "You're welcome," and then I just continue on and enjoy my day. Like it's you can use it really everywhere. I use it for also ascension, and I use it for spiritual upgrades, and I use it for identifying what needs to be healed and cleared in myself, and of course my clients. I use it for things like what direction to take my business, what direction to take my relationships, what direction to take certain events that I'm thinking about doing. If I'm meant to, reach out to a healer, which I do. I do my own healing work myself. Plus, I also reach out to other healers. It's something I really encourage all my students to do. So as they're doing the spiritual training, they're also getting healthier along the way and getting the spiritual upgrades and the enhancements, activations, attunements, things like that. So yeah, you can literally use channeling. And actually, what would be cooler would be to do a list of ways you can't use it because it
That
would be
list would
actually
be
sort of
really
like a
small,
fun.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, there would be it wouldn't be a list.
I
So
mean, of course, you can't channel the winning numbers for the lottery because trust us, if we could, we'd be millionaires. I
woohoo!
guarantee.
Yeah, Kevin already promised to share his portion with me. So
I don't think I ever did. I can't remember that. I don't think you have it on tape.
oh man.
Here's a great question that was asked offline. So, is everything energy?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So a lot of people, what they do is they take energy. They just throw out this word energy like
Yeah.
it's like people are supposed to know what it means. I have an IT background, so I actually took training in what energy actually really is, like subatomic particles and molecules, and protons, neutrons, all that stuff. Like literally on an atomic level about how energy actually really works, and so. When people talk about energy, like and I was guilty for this too. I would just throw out the word energy here or energy there. And then I started to think about it one day and I started channeling it. And I realized that actually, when people talk about energy, what kind of energy are you talking about? So if you get actually really specific with energy, because the word energy is a very broad term. So and you can help me out here, Kevin. There's like nuclear energy, there's radio wave energy, there's vibrational energy, like imagine like singing bowls.
Yeah.
There's frequency like color kind of
Colors,
energy. There's energy like healing energy. There's all
sound,
sorts of different kinds of energy. Can you think of any others?
sound.
Yeah, sound energy. There's microwave energy, like when you microwave your food and that heats up the food. You name it. There's all sorts of, like we talked about, atomic energy and things like that.
Yes. It goes on and on.
It just goes on and on. So rather than just saying the term like, oh, energy or energy, what I like to do with my students is actually try to get them more specific. So, for example, I'll say, okay, where do you feel your guide in your room? And they're like, well, right here. And I go,
Yeah.
well, what do you feel from them? And they're like, well, energy. And I'm like, okay, so what kind of energy? And so I use a technique that I've developed that I teach my students. It's called the tunneling technique, where you go deeper
Yes.
and deeper and deeper, and you go down the branch and you tunnel down as far as you can to get more precise information. So how does this energy feel? Can you describe it? Is it tingly? Is it prickly? Is it like staticky? Is it pressure? Like those are all energy forms, like different kinds. So get more specific, get more precise. And then with that precision, when you talk about energy, then from there, when your spirit guide does show up next time, you're like, oh, I remember Ken teaching me that, oh, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the pressure. I'm looking for the temperature change. I'm looking for, almost like a breeze, because those are, again, it's all energy.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. Yeah. Yeah. There you
That's
go. And
that's my favorite,
those tend
especially
to come
when,
from the inside out, right?
well, yeah,
And your
it's
hairs
like,
stand up on end, and you're like, "Woo, my boobs!"
now following that, I mean, I've done hundreds of readings, but other people, and they've asked, when you first start channeling, the messages aren't as clear. When you practice more, eventually do you get clearer messages?
Yeah, so there's two things there, and I'm always upfront with my students. So pretty much anyone can come into my class. They've never channeled before, and by the end of it, they're channeling like nobody's business, like crazy, amazing, awesome. So
Yes.
there's two things that it could be. One is that people can actually have blocks, like things that are blocking them. So there's a misunderstanding about the term blocks. Think of it like your plumbing, like your sink. Okay, so the sink is is plugged, but is it fully plugged? Is it blocked? So is there some movement through it? And most times when people talk about blocks, um, they're actually it's not a complete block. And it could be many blocks can be in many forms. It could be all sorts of different things. It could be spiritual, it could be different systems, it could be a mental thing, it could be different aspects, which I've identified several dozen different aspects that are non-physical. It could be any one of those. It could be actual like neurological or meridians or things like that as well, lymphatic system, you name it. Those could all be potential blocks. However, is it a full block, and is that particular block affecting that specific thing, like to do with channeling? So sometimes when I would do like those big spirit expos, I would scan the person like real briefly, and it would just take like microseconds, and I teach people how to do that in my channeling level 3 advanced level, where I teach them medical mediumship, how to do it. We actually practice it in the class, which is tons of fun. So I do that, and sometimes I notice that some of my students actually have like some blocks going on. So I'll just like I'll say to them, I'll say, can I just clear you real quick? And then I'll stand up and I'll do their chakras, and I'll just take like 2 minutes, not even, and I'll just clear their chakras, and then I'll sit down, and then I'm like checking they're clear, and I'm like, okay, let's get started. It's pretty rare though. Like it doesn't happen as often as people think. Very few people have blocks that are hindering their channeling to that degree where they can't channel at all. Everyone can channel. For the most part, everyone can channel um, like quite significantly, which brings me to my next point. And by the way, you don't just guess on the blocks. You actually channel and you check and you get yourself out of the
Yes.
way and make sure you do it. So which brings me to the next point, which is Kevin's question, which is practicing. So let's say you don't do anything with the blocks. They're just the same. Everything's the same. When you practice channeling, you are going to get better. So there's a saying that my yoga teacher would always say to our group when she's teaching yoga. She'd be like, okay guys, it's not yoga perfection, it's yoga practice.
Yeah, love it.
And it's the same thing with channeling. It's not channeling perfection. So take that pressure off you. Don't think you have to have it perfect. It's channeling practice. And as you practice, you get better, just like any skill, and you're going to get better. And then what I encourage my students to do is do that healing and clearing while you're learning the hard skills, while you're learning how to channel at those really high advanced levels. And look out, world, like you're on fire because you're doing both the healing and clearing, and you're clearing your container, your channel. And as that happens over the years, then you become even more clear channel, and you can really do crazy advanced stuff at super high levels. It's just so much fun. I love it. Speaking of which, Kevin, what is my slogan? Spirituality is meant to be what?
Fun.
That's right. So that's my slogan, and in my classes, and just even in my one-on-ones, I always try to keep it light, keep it fun. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we have to, work through the dungeon kind of icky, gross stuff once in a while. But if the bulk of it, we can keep it fun. What a better way to live, and what a better way to just, attract people to the spirituality industry, which is so wonderful. And it's just fun. It's a great way to live. So we do keep it light.
That's exactly right. So, having said we're going to keep it light, now I'm going to go and not be light. When we do past life regressions, will we open ourselves up to negative energies?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually checking right now. My experience has been no. So let me clarify this. Let's just break it down into sections, because to say a blanket yes no answer isn't quite the full story. So um, when I first learned how to do past life regressions, I was doing it on myself. I've done hundreds on myself, and then I started immediately doing it on my students, and I've been doing it ever since. And I do it as standard practice in my channeling level 1 curriculum, so everyone gets to experience it in a good, positive, safe environment. And so, what you can do with past life regressions, there's a lot of really cool, powerful stuff you can do with it. So, yes, you can go back into past lives and you can work through things that are affecting you now in a detrimentally, in a negative way, and you can clear those, you can heal those, so that they don't affect you anymore. Um, it's your soul is like that memory bank, and that's where you go when you go to past lives. You tap into your soul and it takes you to these past lives, so that can be very useful, especially for healing and clearing. And what you can also do is you can go back to positive past lifetimes where you had a really positive time and experience, and
Oh,
you learned
yes.
maybe cool skills, and you could go back to those past lifetimes, retrieve those skills, those attributes, those personality traits, bring them to this present lifetime, and embody them now, because you already have them in your system. You already have them in the ether. It's already there. You just need to call it forward into this lifetime, embody it, and then carry that with you going forward. It's actually a really, really cool technique that I do as, again, as standard practice with my students. So now, one thing that we learn in level 2 is we learn how to make sure that what we're doing is in a safe environment where there's nothing external affecting us. If we go into these past lives, while there's something external affecting us, yes, then we could, but it's already been there before we went into the past lives. So, what I always encourage my students to do is make sure that your container, your environment is clean and clear, and then you do any of this kind of work. And that's standard practice.
Yes.
You would never want to go into a healing session with a healer who hasn't checked to make sure that the environment's clear before they start working on you. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things I do also teach my students, is always make sure that you're clear and that they're clear, and then you begin. So really, really important. So, and another thing I do want to say about past lives is that you can go. The only caution I have about past lives, and I kind of fell into this trap a little bit, was I was, especially at the beginning when I first learned it, is I would go back and I would like just dwell on all these negative past lifetimes. And I'm like, after a while, after about 2 years of that, or 3 years, I was like, you know what? That's not who I am anymore. That was
No.
my past life, but that doesn't need to, um, what's the word called?
Affect.
Characterize me now. What's that
Yes.
word?
Affect you now as well.
Affect me, characterize me, or put me in
Define
that
you.
box. Define me.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the wording I was looking for. Define me. It doesn't need to define my life now. I can use it in a good, healthy way. Go
Yeah.
back, observe, go, okay, what needs to be healed or cleared around this? Clear it, move on with my life. Something else surfaces that happens to be past life related. Go back to this past life, identify it, heal and clear it, move on with my life. So try not to use negative past lives as a negative thing that's holding you down or hindering you or defining you going forward.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have this thing about, I saw this funniest meme ever, like, oh, everyone thinks that they're famous in a past lifetime. Well, also everyone, like a lot of people think too that like they've done all this horrible stuff. So now like it affects them. It can affect you in this lifetime, but if you make the choice, like, yes, do the healing and clearing around it. And if you also make the choice to move beyond it in this lifetime going forward, wow, how empowering is that? So try to use it
Exactly.
as an empowering thing.
It's the same thing as if you make a mistake in this lifetime
Yeah.
and you could live with that mistake and beat yourself up and be miserable for the rest of this lifetime,
Mhm.
or you can learn from it and then move on and be a better person because of it.
And not let it define you, right?
Exactly. Second chances, my friend. It's all about second chances.
Hmm.
We touched on negative energies when we were talking about that, and I don't think we have explained it properly. So I'm going to kind of throw this question back at you, Ken. Is what is a negative energy? Because obviously everything's not unicorns and rainbows in spirituality.
Yeah. Let me start with
I
this.
won't say what I normally say about the unicorns, but
Let me say this first, is that like a lot of people think that the world is getting worse and bad, and there's all this hatred and all this negativity in the world. And I remember reading this book one time, and in that book it challenged me to, say, oh, is there really that much negativity? And I'm like, yeah, there is, and I really did seriously believe that. And then so I remember one time I was at an airport waiting for someone to arrive, but their plane was late, so I was waiting at the gate where, or the entrance where everyone comes in. What's that called? Where the welcoming, where they come through the gate and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in ages," and they're giving hugs and they're crying and there's tears, and I'm like, "Holy smokes!" Like, there's so much love. And
yes.
then another time, another day, I was like, because I'm starting to look for all the kindness and the love out there. Another day, I was at the mall, and I'm like, "There's love everywhere." There's like kids running up to their parents, brothers and sisters playing, there's like people meeting up and hugging each other, and even the people being nice to each other in the retail stores. And I'm like, holy smokes, that's right there. If you think about it, there's way more love out there than there is the opposite of that. And so it's true also with spirituality, and like it really is, there's way more love out there, there's way more positivity, there's way more, you know um fighting glitter out your butt and unicorns kind of stuff out there, because there really is. There's way more positivity and love out there in the universe. And is there a little bit of not like the negative or whatever you want to call it? Yeah, there is, and there is. And so again, if we go back to the word energy, energy is not specific enough in this context. So there's souls and there's beings, and souls actually have souls, like you and I, humans,
Yes.
extraterrestrials, and things like that. They have souls, plus non-incarnated souls, so souls in the astral realm and things like that. So there's souls, and then there's beings, and beings don't have souls. And yes, there is negative beings out there, but again, the majority are positive. Things like angels and things like that, sprites, fairies, dragons, all that, for the general part, they're positive. All that. With souls, so there are sometimes souls that are, don't get me wrong, like in the astral realm, you have like your uncle might be kind of a goofball or whatever, but that's not what we're talking about. So there are souls that can be in the what's called the in-between realm. Some people call it purgatory. I don't like to use that term just because it has a negative connotation to it. So there's basically there's the astral realm, there's the in-between realm, and then there's the animal spirit realm. And they are different, and they are completely separate. They can, like, you know go in between, kind of, right? So there's lost souls that reside in the in between realm. So when someone dies, they're incarnated, they die. Sometimes their soul doesn't fully cross over to the astral realm to be with their soul family and get the healing and all that they need. So they remain in this kind of in between realm indefinitely. And those are the ones that you might see on like those ghost hunter kind of shows, and the ones that are spooking people, knocking things off the like opening the cabinet doors and knock things off the shelves. So those ones, the lost souls, can range in a whole different range. Most are benign, most are harmless, they're just lost, they don't know that they're lost, or they're trying to figure out a way to get back home to the astral realm to cross back over, but they can't find a way because they're lost, all that stuff. So um the lost souls can also be somewhere in the middle, or even on this end, which is the more negative and malicious kind of lost souls, and they can affect environments, and they can also affect people. And so
Yes.
there are very specific techniques that I've developed that I teach my students on, first of all, how to identify those lost souls and the characteristics about them. You don't go looking for them, but if they come across your path, you can identify them, and then you can deal with them through the tools and the techniques that I teach my students. And we actually practice this to make sure that they know and they have it down packed on how to go about doing this. And then when I'm not around, they can do it on their own, because it's all about empowering my students. So really good question,
And
Kevin.
that actually works. I mean, there's been numerous times where I've been like, for whatever reason, I'm just not in a good mood. I'm just like angry, or have just anxiety that just doesn't make sense. And in the past, before I learned to channel, I would just go, I'm in a crappy mood. Now
Yeah.
I actually check, and a lot of times I'll have a soul close to me that's affecting my mood. So yeah, it can
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And what the powerful thing about channeling is that when sometimes we get triggered and just stuff comes up, or someone pushes our
Yes.
buttons, or a situation, circumstance bothers us. We're upset. That's internal stuff. That's our own stuff.
Yes.
Sometimes, though, it is external, and it could be something like a lost soul that is affecting us, and speaking things into our minds and saying these things that are not appropriate, and are trying to get us to do things, or just draining our energy, or making us grumpy, or getting us to do things that aren't appropriate for us. So with channeling, what you can do is you can identify, okay, is it me? Is it internal? Or is it actually coming from this lost soul? Is that what's affecting me? Or is it a combination of both? And if it is, what I always recommend to my students, so it's a little tip, if you're watching, you can write this down. What you always do is, if something is affecting you and it is external, then you go ahead and you clear that first. You clear the external thing first, and then you deal with yourself and all your internal crap stuff, whatever that's surfacing from your subconscious to your consciousness. And the reason I suggest this is because you can work on your own stuff all you want, but if this external thing is still affecting you while you're trying to work through your own stuff, it's not going to help very much. So always clear your environment first if you need to. But again, I teach my students, only do what you need to, nothing more, nothing less. So if it's all your stuff, just working on your stuff. If it's not
Yeah.
nothing external, there's no point worrying about external things, because it's not that.
Well, and a lot
And
of times I find people are using, oh, well, it's I'm in a crappy mood because I have a soul. Well, no, not all the time. Sometimes you're
yeah,
just in a crappy mood because somebody triggered you.
yeah. Or
Deal with
sometimes
it.
you're just being a jerk because you're being a jerk, and it has nothing to
Yes.
do with something external. But too many people want to like point the blame outside of them,
Of course. Of course.
and
So,
and and
and
sometimes it is, but a lot of times it isn't.
exactly. Anne Marie has a great question here. What is the difference between just channeling from our guides or going into the Akashic records to get information?
Yes, really good question. So two totally separate things. I have taught Akashic Records classes. So what are Akashic Records? What are Akashic Records is it's basically like our book of life. So think of it like anything and everything that you've ever felt, done, thought, anything and everything, every situation, circumstance is all written in this book of life. And it's not just from this lifetime, it's from all lifetimes. So it's like an entire library of books of things. And that's the Akashic records. So the two places that things are written and stored, are the two areas are your soul and your Akashic records. So depending on the circumstances, you can go into your Akashic records to find that and retrieve that information, or you can look into your soul. Or I think what Anne Marie's question is, how do you know when to go to your Akashic records or channel your spirit guides? And it depends on the situation. So this is what I teach. I teach people how to channel their spirit guides at really, really high levels. And then when you get really good at channeling your spirit guides, then what you do is you can ask first of all, which spirit guide wants to come in to help you with this, and then invite that guide to come forward, increase your connection with this guide. And then what you do is you ask that guide, okay, when in this circumstance, whatever's going on, where would it be appropriate for me to start basically digging, or start going, which location? Is it more me and my soul where I would find this information, or is it in my Akashic records? And either, or is it both? It could be one of those three scenarios: my soul, my Akashic records, or both. And then your guide will guide you on how to go about dealing with that, and working through it, and all that. So always, 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 always use your guides for everything, your spirit guides, because they're going to be the ones that are going to direct you and guide you
Yeah.
as to how to go ahead and navigate whatever is going on in your life.
Great.
Yeah.
um, this one kind of follows up with that. And don't forget, if you're listening and you have a question, type into the chat your question. I will get to it as soon as we're able to. And remember to keep it general. Don't ask specifics. We're not doing mini readings right now, but go ahead and type your questions in. In the meantime, I have questions that were asked before that we had kind of keep a track of and we didn't get to. How do you protect yourself from other people's energy?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. So let me answer this question this way. There's two extremes in spirituality. Some people feel that they're always like the victim, and they're always getting attacked, and things are always negative. And a lot of times it's not, it's just their own stuff. There's another line of thought in the spirituality industry, where some people think they go to the other extreme where they think, oh, as long as I raise my vibration and I, increase my light and I, like vibrate really high, that none of this negative stuff can ever affect me or negative energies. Neither one is quite accurate. So there's two main ways that you can protect your energy. One is do your healing and clearing and your spiritual upgrades. So you want to be basically like a clear channel so that when stuff and energy comes in, it'll come in, but it won't stick. It'll just pass through you, right? Where let's say this is all gunky and contaminated and gross and disgusting, and then something comes in into it. Well, it's going to stick to all that gunk and grossness, and then
Oh
make it
yeah.
even worse. And so, the more healing and clearing we can do with us, not just our physical container, but also our emotions and energy and all those other things, like other ways that we can do our healing and clearing, then it'll just pass right through us. So do your healing and clearing, and then your spiritual upgrades. And what I mean by that is because let's say there's many components that help with this, but let's say our auric field. So if our auric field has a whole bunch of holes and tears, and I don't do drugs or alcohol, nothing like that, but let's say, for example, somebody goes out and they go to a party or a rave, or some sort of bar or something like that, or a pub, and then they do some drugs, or they do like lots of alcohol until they black out. What can happen is, or just even like eating like processed foods that have a lot of chemicals in it and stuff like that, that can affect your auric field. And your auric field is the main thing that gives you protection. So if you have a whole bunch of holes and tears in your auric field, then you're like a sieve, and things come and go as they please, and affect you in, not just like we talked about earlier, not just those lost souls, also negative energies from other people. So this is really important, that as you are doing your spiritual journey, you're working on doing your healing and clearing, and you also are working on enhancing and upgrading your auric field, and make sure that your container is clear and you have an expanded and strengthened auric field that adds your protection, which is really important. Um, and then the other way is to be able to identify anything that is affecting you that might be external, like your energies. So then you can kind of just like, what happens is, I've seen this with so many of my students, and it's not conscious. It's happened to me many times. Is that we'll get into like a heightened triggered state, and then what we'll do is we'll collapse our energy field, and our auric field will like almost like do this. And then what happens though is our auric field gets super super close to us. So, and it's not supposed
Yes.
to be. It's actually supposed to be quite far away from us, like not super far, but enough, like at its optimal distance from us.
Yeah.
And so what we want to work on is not just having a nice strong auric field that has good protection, but we also want to make sure it's the right distance away from us, nice and solid. And there is this misconception out there in the spirituality industry that we actually want our auric field to be somewhat permeable. So, for example, we want to be able to feel some energies from people and environments because it's actually a good thing. We just don't want
Mhm.
it to be super like big, massive holes and gaps in it where we're feeling everything. And the reason why I say this is because let's say you're walking down a back alley in a city center or something at nighttime. Well, you want to be able to sense like there's something off about going down that back alley. Or have you ever met someone who you've met them and you're like, I don't know, is there something off about them? Well, if your auric field was solid and it had no permeability, you actually wouldn't pick up on that. And that could actually be a hazard. So you do want the optimal amount of permeability to be able to actually feel certain energies to a certain degree. You just don't want it to be super heightened where it overwhelms you.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I had to put this one up. Anne Marie says spidey senses.
Yeah, spidey senses. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And actually, um, there is a difference between instincts and intuition. That's quite a conversation on that, but there is
Yes.
actually there is a difference. And spidey senses in this case is actually instincts. And instincts is a primal survival mechanism that kicks in to keep you safe, to keep you alive, to basically, yeah, keep you from dying. So you do not want to
Danger.
do yeah, you do not want to do anything to hinder or obstruct that instinct to be able to work at its optimal and the appropriate time. So good point. I like the
Along
spice.
those lines, when you incarnate, are you assigned a guardian angel? So, in other words, does every single person on Earth have their own guardian angel?
Yeah. So what I'm always cautious with my students about is saying the words like always or never. I found that in spirituality, there's rarely a case where it's always like this or never like that. And so I'm always careful about that. I've heard people actually say stuff like this, and I'm like, and through channeling, I actually check. So let's just clarify. Basically, when someone says, "Oh, you have a guardian angel," your grandma's your guardian angel. Oftentimes, what they're referring to is grandma is like a soul. So angels do help us and help mankind from time to time, but actually not quite as much as people think. It's our spirit guides usually that help us. But let's say in this example, grandma is like your guardian angel. She's here and watching over you. And that's a really endearing term. So grandma's not actually an angel at all. She's a soul and she's a loved one. And so I'm always like, what I want my students to be careful is what I try to use very precise language to describe what they're actually describing. So if grandma was an angel, then I would say she's an angel, even though she has angelic like qualities. I get that. Like she's a sweetheart, she's loving, all that stuff, but she's not an angel. She's a soul. So I try to stay away from the word guardian angel. So um, my experience has been that most people have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides. Those spirit guides are members of their soul family. Okay, so we incarnate, we come to this earth. Our spirit guides might change through different seasons of our life, and they might change the numbers, like how many we have. um, and then sometimes we might, throughout our lifetime, we might have an angel who does interject or help or assist us, but it's not actually as common as people think. So, um, our main spirit guides are the ones that we should get really good at communicating with and working with on a regular basis. My experience has been that no, people do not have an actual angel that is assigned to each individual when they're born. There are just angels in general, like Archangel Michael or something like that, who may assist from time to time, the odd human, but they don't actually intervene as much as people think. They try to kind of leave us to our own devices and let us live our lives on the path that we've chosen because we have free will. And also, some of that blueprint has been written for us, or it's options that have been written for us before we incarnated. So that's more Akashic records, stuff like contracts, deals, and agreements.
Oh, great question, Anne Marie. I'm going to
Great
put this
question.
one up for you. Um, so, when people are saying they are channeling messages from archangels like Metatron or Michael, are they actually channeling them?
Sometimes,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, sometimes. Um, it's it depends. Let me clarify that is so I actually have the ability to check, and I actually teach my students how to check. I always want my students, one of the most important things that I emphasize through my channeling levels 1, 2, and 3, and even my animal communication certification program level 4, is always, always, always know who you're communicating with, who you're channeling. A
Yes.
lot of people just like think that they're channeling someone or randomly channeling whoever, and they have no idea. And I did this for over a decade because I just didn't know any better. And through that, through channeling things I shouldn't or wasn't good for me, I had to learn to always make sure that I always know who I'm channeling and where the answers are coming from. And not a lot of people have the ability to actually check to know where they're getting the answers from, or they make assumptions, or are you ready for this one? Or they want it to be who they want it to be. So they're
Yes.
like, "Oh, I want it to be Archangel Michael. I want it to be Archangel Metatron." So then they they just assume that it is, and most of the time they're either channeling their own soul, their higher self, or maybe one of their spirit guides, but they actually are usually not channeling an angel or archangel. But they could be, and
It
some
could be.
people legitimately do, but it's actually a lot more rare than you think. And then in my channeling level 3 workshop, when I teach people how to authentically actually channel angels, and they go through those experiences, because I have them channel multiple angels, they're like, whoa.
There's
So
such a huge
I
difference.
know. So
Ex-
they're just mind
yeah.
blown, and then they're like, okay, now I see this. This is what it's really authentically like to channel an angel. Like it's so different.
I was asked one time what the difference is, and I'm like, it's like going swimming in the um,
The
Glenmore
wading pool?
Reservoir in the middle of December,
Yeah,
or going to Playa del Carmen and swimming there in the middle of December. That's the difference.
yeah.
It's that much of a difference. It's yeah.
Contrast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you,
exactly.
Kevin. That's good. Um, and I do recommend, like, I'm not saying don't channel angels, please do. I'm just
Yes.
saying I highly recommend get to know your team, your spirit guides really, really well, and make that your main go-to people because they know why you've chosen to incarnate, why you're here, how you're meant to get the most out of this lifetime. Whereas angels don't deal with that kind of stuff. They deal with more universal stuff. And it's your spirit guides that deal with the intricacies of your everyday, day in, day out kind of life. Like what career path should I take? Angels don't deal with that. Should I date this person? Angels don't deal with that. Like that's your spirit guides that deal with those kind of that's their role.
Yeah, and they know your purpose. They know your plan. So it
Yeah.
would make
Yeah.
sense. Now, when you're talking about channeling, we often say we use clairs. I'm going to ask you specifically what clairs. Okay, name the clairs, and then what clairs do you use when you're channeling?
Yeah, so our guides can communicate to us many different ways. So I'll go through them in no particular order, and I don't like people to get hung up on it has to be this order.
Yes.
So the main six clairs are clairvoyant. It's like where you see an image in your mind's eye. So if I say to you, uh, "Don't think of a pink elephant," guess
Damn.
what? You just thought of a pink elephant, right? It's impossible not to. So that's an image in your mind. So if you look or see your guide, they might present themselves in a certain way, like either male or female, tall or short, skinny, heavy set, short hair, long hair, beautiful hair like Kevin's. They might be a different ethnicity. So that's all clairvoyant, the way that they're presenting themselves. And the way that they communicate with you is they will give you like an image in your mind's eye, like say a beach ball, and then you use your other you can ask your guide to elaborate on that, and that beach ball might be symbolic for many different things. So that's where you ask for
Yes.
clarity. Does that mean playtime, like you're going to play? Does it mean take a trip? Like what does it mean, the beach ball image? Why are you showing me this beach ball image in my mind's eye? So that's clairvoyant. Think of like a voyeur, like someone like a clairvoyant, clear seeing in your mind's eye. The next one is clairaudience, and that's audio, that's hearing. And so if you think of like a song, one of your favorite songs. So give me a song, Kevin. Give me a song.
Ah,
Any radio song, any song that you might hear.
jingle bells. I don't know.
Right,
Just
yeah, Jingle Bell Rock. Okay,
yeah.
so there you go. You have that song, even though it's now it's in your mind, and you could hear it like jingling and yeah, right. So that is clairaudient. We all have it. Everyone has it.
Yes.
So what I'll take my students through is okay. How do you hear your spirit guide's voice in your mind? Do you hear? Do they have a high pitched voice, a low pitched voice? Do they speak quickly? Do they speak slowly? Do they speak more monotone, or do they have a lot of inflection in their voice? Do they speak very like soft and kind, or are they more matter of fact and direct? Or so these are all like intonations of different idiosyncrasies of the way that their voice, you hear their voice in your mind, and then how does their voice sound different than your own thoughts? And being able to discern and identify that. So that's clairaudient. And then another one is what's called clairsentient. And there's two components to clairsentient. So clairsentient is like actually
Goosebumps.
feeling them. So we talked about that earlier. Like, is it pressure? Is it tingles? Is
Oh
it
yeah.
electrical? Is it like goosebumps? Is it, like, do you feel like any of those kind of sensations, heat or cold? That's all part of the clairsentient category. And also, like, can you sense their presence? How do you know they're on this side of you and not the other side of you? Things like that. And then the other way that they communicate with you through clairsentient is emotions. So they might be sending the emotions of like open your heart, like be more heart centered, open up, and you feel that in your body. What does it feel like to be more heart centered? They might give you, another guide might give you the feeling of take action, take action. So they're like almost like prompting you or pulling you forward to take this certain action in this area of your life. So that's all clairsentient. Another clair is called clairalience or alien. So it's like air. and you might get a smell in your nose. So, for example, you might smell roses, right, Kevin? So you smell a rose or flowers.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you don't have a flower in front of you, but you're smelling clear aliens, and so you ask your spirit guide, okay, what's the reason or reasons you're giving me the smell of roses, and what's the meaning behind it? What's the message behind it? Another one could be
A lot of people will
clairgustance.
smell cigarette or pipe
Yeah,
smoke.
that's right. Yeah, and that can identify who's around you. Another one
Exactly.
could be clairgustance, like
Yeah.
tasting, clairgustance, and that's you can taste, let's say, watermelon. Okay, so why is your guide giving you the watermelon taste? And you taste that taste in your mind. So right now you don't have watermelon right now in your mouth, but you can taste what that would taste like in your mind. So that's again clairgustance. That's one of the ways they might communicate with you. And then what's the message behind that, Claire? And then the other Claire, another one is called clear cognizance. So the word cognizance, clear knowing, clear knowing. It comes quick, it comes fast, and a lot of people think it actually comes from the head, but it actually doesn't. It comes from the gut area, and it comes like this. It comes up, it comes quick, it comes fast, and it's an
Verbal
instant.
diarrhea.
Yeah, it's quick, it's fast,
Yeah.
and that's another way that our spirit guides like to communicate with us. So when a channeler first begins to channel, oftentimes what they'll do is they'll get used to their one or two different clairs, and those are their strong ones, and then they kind of stick with that through their whole spiritual life. And what I do starting in level one is I take them through an exercise where I teach them how to use all the different clairs, and then I invite them and welcome them to practice those clairs on their own time, the weaker ones, the ones that they need more strength in, and invite a guide to come in and say, Kevin, give me a weaker clair of yours, one that you don't use as much.
Audience.
Okay, so clairaudience. So you sit there on a couch, nice and quiet. You invite one of your spirit guides to come forward, and you say, "Okay, can you give me messages? Can you tell me a message in my mind through clairaudient?" And then they speak to you in your mind, and you practice that for, let's say, 5 days straight for a couple minutes. And as you practice that, it increases that clair, and then you do that with your other weaker clairs. And what that does is it helps you to use all your clairs, because eventually, where I want to get all my students, which is where I am, is at a point in their life where they can just say, you know what, whichever way you want to communicate with me, I'm welcome to any and all of them. I don't have to put you in a box and say I'm only going to use clairvoyant or I'm only going to use clairsentient. No, it doesn't matter. I can use them all, whichever one you want to communicate. And that's advanced channelers.
And
That's what I teach my
quite
students.
often they'll use more than one at the same time,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And
Um,
different guides will also use different ones.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so one guide might come in and he's your business guide or job or career guide, and he wants you to, very methodical, very structured, and he's like step, 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 step. And then he steps back, another guide steps in, and it's your female guide, and she's here to help with relationships. Well, she might want to communicate with you through clairsentient, that's the feelings and the emotions, and she does that purposely so that you can open your heart center and you could be more kind and compassionate to your partner, your coworkers, or whoever it is,
Your
and try to see
friend,
things, your friend, or maybe yourself, you know,
yourself.
yeah,
Yes.
like be more compassionate with yourself.
Not
So
bug them about their
sh-
mustache.
she might communicate with Kevin to give himself more compassion about that caterpillar on his face. And when he talks, it moves. So I was like, woo! So get really good at working with all the different clairs because it really does help you to be a much more advanced channeler.
Yeah.
Takes a bit of
Here's a
practice,
great
but it
one.
doesn't take long. It really doesn't. You can master all the different clairs within a week or two. And I want to make another point about clairs is if you look on the internet, there's like, there's people like, oh, there's clair this, that, and then you could list 20 or 30 or 50. And, if you take those six that I just mentioned, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairalliance, clairgustance, clairsentient, and claircognizant, if you take those six, all these other offshoots can be pretty much put into one of those.
Yeah.
And what humans like to do is they like to overcomplicate things. And so just keep it simple. And it really does boil down to those six. If you want to use all those other gazillion other clairs, go for it. But it's really not necessary. Just master these six and you're off to the races.
Yeah.
Sometimes simpler is better. Sorry, you were going to say, Kevin?
Nope. I don't know. I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah. So, um, really get good at using all your clairs and do practice them. Spend a little bit of time over like 5 minutes every day for a week or two, and you'll be just rocking all those different clairs.
Here's a great question that kind of goes with that when you're saying, like, practice it, get really good at it. Can you overuse your spirit guides? Can you offend them?
So two separate questions.
Yeah.
Can you overuse your spirit guides? So um, I've had some of my students. So let me start with this one. Is can you overuse channeling? Yes. Have I been there? Yes. I've like, do I tie my shoelaces this way or this way? It's just tie your freaking shoelaces and get out the door. Who cares? Like really, I mean, it was almost getting ridiculous for me. Like I would stand there like in an aisle at a grocery store, one little section. I'd stand there for like an hour trying to pick the perfect thing. And like I said earlier, sometimes there's more than one good option. So just pick one that's reasonable, grab it, walk out the door. You know what I mean? Like not
It's like
everything.
ordering a food at a restaurant. Just
Yeah,
pick something on the menu and order it.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's an inside joke between Kevin and I. So yeah, you should see Kevin at a restaurant. Anyways, so um, sometimes you can just like live your life, and please do. But the other question that I've had some of my students do is like, I'll be they'll be so we're one of my students in my 6 month program. We were working together over a 6 month period, and then something came up that was like really contentious, and she needed answers on it. And then I asked her, like remember she's taken all my workshops, where she's into my 6 month strategic channeling program, and then this thing came up, and I'm like, so why didn't you ask your guides? And then it eventually came out through a little bit of digging is that well, because I didn't want to bother them. I didn't want to like, and I'm like, no, no, no. So your spirit guides aren't like incarnated humans. Like incarnated humans, if you're constantly pestering them, they're like, yeah, okay, enough already. After a while, they go away. But your spirit guides aren't like that. They're really not. They want you to use them. You can never overuse your spirit guides. Please do use their services, and ask them for help in all situations, every circumstance. They can really help you, and they will never get bothered. Which brings me to my next point is it doesn't matter what you do, you can never offend your spirit guides. I mean, seriously, like they reside in the astral realm. They don't have that human baggage and all those hangups that other humans to do. You can tell them, to screw off. You can tell them, call them names like they're a jerk and all these other stuff. It doesn't bother them. You can tease them about their mustache. You can tease them about other things. It won't bother them at all. So don't ever worry about offending your spirit guides, and don't ever worry about overusing them. Please do use
Yeah.
their services. That's what they want. They really do. And you can check this with your guides right now. I encourage it. Yeah.
They want you to use them more. That's what
Yeah.
I always get. It's like, you need to use us more, not less.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Ken, I can't believe we're almost 2 minutes away from being 1 hour. That was a quick hour.
I know, right?
Um, if people want to reach you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Ken Lewicki at channelinginc.com. Please do just go to my website and yeah, just visit channelinginc.com. I have tons of spiritual events. Some are free, some are like this, like where Kevin and I do things like that. I have certification workshops coming up. I have intro classes. I have all sorts of cool things there. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Like I really do. Thank you for everyone who's been following me over these years and who is with me on this journey. And if you're brand new, welcome. If you've been with me a while, thank you very much. I really am big about building community. So please feel free to reach out, feel free to connect, feel free to follow me on any social media site. I'm on all the major ones. And I do try to post lots of positive, uplifting posts and encouraging posts. So yeah, feel free to reach out to myself.
And if you want to laugh, if you want to go to a spirituality page and have some fun, what's the page we should go to, Ken?
Yeah, so on Facebook, go to Spirituality is Fun. The Facebook, it's a public group. Everyone is welcome. You're welcome to post any fun, uplifting posts
Keep it
there.
clean.
Keep it clean, yeah, of course, and just fun. Like keep it light,
Yes.
keep it fun, and feel free to engage on there, make comments and stuff like that. And it really is light and fun. And that's my slogan, is because I found like a lot of people in the spirituality industry are just way too serious. So Let's have
Yes.
fun. So, Kevin, spirituality is meant to be what? Fun, right? So
Fun.
keep it light, keep it fun. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Oh, before we go, you have a live event coming up this weekend. Where is
Yeah,
it and what are you doing?
yeah. So it is at Unity Calgary. Just Google search it, or again, go to my website or my Facebook business page, kenlewicki-channelinginc.com, and go to the events tab, and then you can see the Unity Calgary this Sunday, and it has all the particulars there. You can just show up. It's free. If you would like to add a donation, great. If you don't, that's great. If you live in the Calgary area, again, just come to say hi. Like really,
Yeah.
like just say, you know what? I just want to see you. I just wanted to say hi. Give me a hug, all that stuff. And I would love to see you. It really would be an honor. I'm going to be doing a really cool exercise on connecting with your soul at a really deep level. It's really beautiful. And another activity on self love. So it's not just going to be like a lecture or a talk. I'm actually going to be walking through how all this works, how to like self love yourself, and how to really do it at deep, deep levels. Because really, when you can love yourself, nothing external can really bother you. And it really does boil down to that. So, and then it also helps to change the world. It really is life changing, not just for yourself and your immediate family and community. It's also life changing for the world. So
Awesome.
that is at 10:30 at Unity Calgary. Please come down, say hi, and like I said, give me a hug.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ken. And until next month, what are we doing next month with Christmas happening?
Yep, we're on. Let's do it. I think we already agreed to it. So it's going to
The
be a couple days before Christmas, as far as I know.
No, it's the 28th. It's in
28th,
between.
a couple days after Christmas. So yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
We will
Yeah.
see everybody December 28th. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
Talk to you soon.